You know, when we walk up to a physical building in the real world, the architecture kind of tells us exactly what to expect before we even, cross the threshold.
Right, like you instantly know where you are.
Exactly. Like a grand municipal courthouse has those massive, imposing stone pillars that practically scream authority, right?
Sure.
Or a neighborhood coffee shop has a cozy, weathered wooden door, maybe a little glass window.
Yeah, the physical environment communicates its purpose instantly. It sort of prepares you mentally for the interaction you're about to have inside.
It totally does. It's
I get it.
completely intuitive. But then you step into the digital architecture that you and I navigate every single day, and suddenly those massive stone pillars are replaced by, well, just a blank screen.
A blank screen and a tiny little string of text.
Right, a tiny floating string of text. The entire weight of a sprawling, multi-billion-dollar digital ecosystem is often just, reduced to a handful of pixels.
It's wild when you actually stop to think about it.
It really is. And today, you, the listener, asked us to analyze a microscopic piece of that digital architecture. You sent us just 7 words to see what they reveal about how tech giants basically control access to their worlds.
Just 7 words. That is the entire landscape we are exploring today.
Yep, I'm going to read the entirety of the provided text verbatim to set the stage.
Okay.
Here it is. Excerpts from Google Gemini. Sign in Google Apps.
And that's it. That's the whole thing.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because while the text is incredibly brief, our goal today isn't just to, look at the grammar or whatever. We are going to look at the mechanisms hiding behind these words.
Right. The actual structure of it.
Yeah, how do tech giants use this kind of minimalist design to obscure massive data gateways? What is the underlying architecture of a modern digital login?
Because, in the world of digital text, brevity is never an accident.
Never.
When text is this constrained, every single element is the result of endless A/B testing and psychological refinement. It's highly engineered, so engineered. We're going to break down the branding, the authentication mechanism it demands, and the ecosystem it points to. Let's start with the concept of that minimalist facade.
The blank screen you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. The text we have doesn't explain what it does. It doesn't have a paragraph welcoming the user or, explaining the benefits of the service or detailing the terms of use.
It just presents a boundary, a
Yeah.
wall.
Right. It's just a boundary. I want to talk about the UX philosophy here, user experience. Why do companies strip away all the context and just leave a blunt command?
Well, it comes down to a concept called cognitive load. In the early days of the internet, designers felt the need to explain literally everything.
Oh, I remember. Like literal paragraphs explaining how to navigate the site.
Yes, or what a hyperlink was, or why you should even create an account in the first place. But over the last 2 decades, UX designers realized that all that text creates friction.
Friction meaning basically anything that slows the user down from taking the desired action. Precisely. Every additional word a user has to read is a microsecond of processing power their brain has to expend.
And an opportunity for them to get distracted.
Or get confused, or just decide, it's not worth the effort and close the tab completely. So the philosophy shifted to ruthless minimalism.
Just strip everything out.
Yeah, you remove every single word that isn't absolutely critical to driving the conversion. And the conversion, in this specific case, is getting the user to log in.
Right, which brings us to the first part of this text string. The prompt starts with excerpts from Google Gemini. We have the word Google immediately preceding Gemini.
What's fascinating here is how the architecture of trust is established. Gemini is Google's generative AI model.
Which is still a relatively new concept for a lot of people.
Exactly. For a lot of users, interacting with a powerful AI is still a new, slightly opaque, and maybe even kind of an intimidating experience. They don't necessarily understand the mechanics of a large language model.
Right, they don't know how the neural network is processing their data or what it's even doing behind the scenes.
They really don't. So if the text just said Gemini, it might induce hesitation.
It's an unfamiliar pillar, so to speak.
Right. But by anchoring it immediately with Google, the text leverages an enormous reservoir of existing brand trust. The branding is doing all the heavy lifting here.
It totally establishes a hierarchy.
It does. It tells the user, you don't need to fully understand the back-end mechanics of this AI. You just need to know that it operates under the umbrella of a brand you already interact with, like a dozen times a day.
It essentially transfers the user's comfort with searching for a recipe or checking their email over to this entirely new technology. It's a massive psychological shortcut.
It really is.
But, I want to push back on this a little bit. This makes me think about the nature of the text being labeled an excerpt. The prompt says, excerpts from Google Gemini.
Okay,
It implies we are looking at a fragment of a conversation or a piece of generated output that has been literally pulled out of its original environment. Does analyzing a title without the accompanying body text inherently limit us?
yeah.
Or is the branding itself the actual message?
Well, the extraction is key here. The branding is the message, but it's triggered by that extraction. When you pull data, an excerpt, out of a secure, personalized AI interaction and try to access it elsewhere, the system immediately throws up a security barrier.
Ah, because it needs to verify that the person trying to view this excerpt is the person who generated it,
Exactly. It has to check your ID.
which perfectly explains the bluntness of the very next two words in our text. Sign in. This is the gateway.
The toll booth.
Right. We move from the noun establishing authority right into this imperative verb command. It hits you right out of the gate.
It's definitely not a suggestion. It is a strict barrier.
Let's talk about the mechanics of that toll booth, because sign in isn't just a physical action of typing on a keyboard anymore. It represents this incredibly complex back-end process called single sign-on, or SSO.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the command to sign in is the linchpin of the modern digital economy.
It really is. I mean, 10 or 15 years ago, you had a different username and password for every single website you visited.
It was exhausting.
You had a login for your email, a login for your calendar, a login for a news site. Your identity was just totally fractured across the web.
And it was a nightmare to manage. People just used like password 123 for everything because the cognitive load of remembering 50 different credentials was way too high.
Right. So tech giants developed these single sign-on architectures. Oath is the primary protocol used for this,
Right. Oath. Instead of creating a new account every time, you use your primary identity.
which in this case would be your Google account.
Exactly, to just unlock everything across the board.
Okay, I want to break down how Oath actually works for people who might just see it as a magic button, because the mechanism is really clever.
It is very clever.
Signing into an ecosystem like this isn't like opening the door with a key. It's actually a lot more like getting a stamp at a nightclub.
Oh, I like where this is going.
Yeah, so when you show up to a massive club, you don't show your ID to the bartender, and then show it again to the DJ, and then show it again to get into the VIP lounge.
Because that would be massive friction.
Right, nobody would buy drinks.
Yeah.
Instead, you show your ID one time at the front door to the bouncer. The bouncer verifies you are who you say you are, and they stamp your hand, or, give you a wristband.
And from that point on, you just flash the wristband.
Exactly. That is a perfect analogy for token-based authentication. When this text commands you to sign in and you enter your credentials, you are showing your ID to the bouncer.
Which is the central authentication server.
Yep. Once you pass, that server doesn't send your password to Gemini or to your email. It generates an authentication token. That token is your digital wristband.
And that token is stored right in your browser. So as you move around the ecosystem, jumping from a document to a map to an AI prompt, the systems are just looking for the wristband.
It's completely seamless.
It is. And the reason this text is so insistent, the reason it stops you cold with sign-in, is because without that token, you are functionally invisible to the system.
You're a ghost.
Yeah, and an invisible anonymous user provides very little economic value to a platform built on personalized data.
Oh, let's dig into that economic value, because I feel like that's the real why behind this tiny fragment of text. Why is it so crucial that the user authenticates? It's not just about security, right?
No, not at all.
It's about data continuity.
It is entirely about data continuity. We often toss around that phrase, if you aren't paying for the product, you are the product.
Right, classic internet wisdom.
But a more accurate way to look at it is that your unified data profile is the product.
Okay, explain that distinction.
Well, when you are signed in, the platform can link your search history, your location data from maps, your calendar events, and your AI interactions in Gemini, all into one cohesive profile.
So they're building this high-resolution image of who you are, what you want, and crucially, what you might buy next.
Exactly. And they can't stitch that image together if you aren't logged in. If you interact with Gemini anonymously, that data is orphaned.
It's just floating out there.
Yeah, it can't be tied back to the broader profile used for targeted advertising or service personalization. So the architecture of the web is designed to force authentication at every possible choke point.
Wow. So the text sign in isn't just about protecting your data from others.
No, it's about ensuring the platform can continuously attach your data to you.
That is wild. Which brings us to the destination this text points toward. Following the command to sign in, The prompt we are analyzing doesn't just say sign in, it says sign in Google Apps.
The mysterious destination.
Right, and we will get to the bizarre formatting of that in a second. But I want to focus on the word apps at the end of that string. Notice it's plural, and it's incredibly vague.
Right. It specifies a grouping, a suite of tools, but it lists none of them specifically.
It doesn't say sign in to view your Gemini excerpt. It points you to the entire apps ecosystem. Why do digital platforms use these generalized terms instead of specific destinations?
It's a very deliberate choice.
It feels like being handed a keyring and being told these are the keys to the buildings,
Yeah.
but not being told which building you're actually supposed to enter.
Well, because they aren't selling you a specific tool anymore, they're conditioning you to operate within a walled garden.
Okay, let's explain the walled garden mechanism, because this is so fundamental to understanding modern tech.
A walled garden is basically a closed ecosystem in which all the operations are controlled by the ecosystem operator.
Like Apple, they're famous for this with iOS.
Exactly, and Google operates a massive one with its suite of web services. The strategy is to create an environment where the services are so deeply integrated and work so seamlessly together that leaving the ecosystem becomes incredibly painful for the user.
Right, like if your photos back up to their cloud, and their cloud is linked to your email, and your email is linked to your calendar,
Then switching to a competitor for just one of those services breaks the whole chain.
it's too much friction to leave.
Precisely. So when the text says sign in to apps, plural, it is a subtle psychological cue. It's reminding the user that they aren't just unlocking a single document or a single AI prompt.
They are re-authenticating to the entire environment.
Yes, the vagueness is completely intentional. By keeping the destination broad, the company reinforces the idea that the ecosystem itself is the primary destination, not any individual service within it. You are stepping into their world.
It really is conditioning. They want you to view the boundary as a single gate to a vast city rather than like 50 different doors you have to unlock separately, which makes the user lock in incredibly strong.
It does, and this ties directly back to our discussion on token-based authentication. The seamlessness of the walled garden relies entirely on that single login token. The technical architecture and the business strategy are just completely intertwined here.
Okay, now here's where it gets really interesting. I have to bring up the elephant in the room regarding the exact text you, the listener, provided us.
The formatting quirk.
Yes, we are analyzing this verbatim, and the string is written exactly as sign in Google Apps. There is literally no space between in and Google. It is a fused string of text.
The in-Google anomaly.
Right. So I have to ask, based strictly on the text, since the source explicitly says Google Apps but gives 0 specific names, does this imply universal access to all apps, or is it intentionally vague?
Well, as we just established, it definitely leaves the specific apps open and specifies the plural nature of the destination to reinforce the ecosystem.
But furthermore, could the fusion of in Google represent how the action of signing in and the brand itself have become fundamentally intertwined in this text? Like, I have to push back on trying to find deep philosophical meaning in a typo, though.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Isn't it far more likely that in Google is just a scraping error? Like someone copied this text from a poorly rendered web page, or a script just stripped out the space character when extracting the text, rather than it being some deliberate psychological fusion by the developers.
Oh, absolutely. On a technical level, it is almost certainly a parsing error or a scraping artifact.
Just a glitch.
Yeah, when automated systems scrape text from dynamic web elements, spaces between distinct spans of text often just get dropped. It's just a glitch in the digital ether.
Okay, good. Because I really don't want to sit here and pretend that a missing spacebar tap is a masterclass in subliminal messaging.
No, it's not deliberate at all. However, it is a very happy accident for our analysis because that typo perfectly represents the ultimate idealized goal of modern UX design.
Oh, how so?
It represents the complete elimination of friction between the user's intent and the platform's brand.
Oh, that's a really interesting way to look at it. Explain that.
Well, think about what we've been discussing regarding cognitive load and seamless walled gardens. The ultimate goal of a tech giant is for the user to not even perceive the boundary of the ecosystem.
They don't want you to see the walls.
Exactly. They want the act of using their services to feel as natural and uninterrupted as breathing.
So they want the login process to essentially disappear entirely.
Yes, and in many ways, it already is disappearing with technologies like biometric passkeys, Face ID or fingerprint scanners on your laptop.
Right, you just look at your screen and you're in.
Exactly. The physical act of typing a password is going away. The boundary is becoming invisible. So when we look at this glitchy, fused text in Google, it accidentally mirrors that reality.
The action in and the destination, Google, have literally collapsed into a single entity.
The boundary between the command and the brand has completely dissolved. It's no longer sign in to use Google. It's just a state of being. You are in Google.
Wow. It reminds me of how brand names inevitably become verbs when they achieve total market dominance. Like, we don't search the web anymore, we Google things.
We Uber to the airport.
Right, the brand just swallows the action.
That's the exact mechanism at play. When a platform achieves that level of ubiquity, the mechanics of access, the login screens, the authentication tokens, they all just fade into the background.
The user stops thinking about the fact that they're handing over credentials.
Or that they're entering a closed ecosystem at all. It just becomes the default state of operating a computer or a smartphone.
Which really highlights the danger of this minimalist architecture. If the friction is completely removed and the text just says sign in without explaining what you are signing into or what data is being linked, the user kind of loses their agency.
That is the core trade-off of the modern web. We trade transparency and agency for convenience.
We take the nightclub hand stamp.
Exactly. We willingly accept the hand stamp because we don't want to carry our ID to the bar. But in doing so, we agree to let the bouncer track every single drink we order, who we talk to on the dance floor, and what time we leave.
And because the text on the door is so minimal, I mean, it's just a few pixels demanding a click, we never really stop to read the terms of that agreement.
We just click it.
We are navigating a landscape of blunt commands, and we obey them because we feel like we have no other choice if we want to participate in the digital world.
The architecture is quite literally designed to make participation mandatory and questioning it exhausting.
So what does this all mean? Let's look at what we've unpacked here today from a mere 7 words. We started with excerpts from Google Gemini, identifying how tech giants use their established monolithic brand trust to anchor users when introducing complex new technologies.
Right, like generative AI.
Yep. Then we examined the imperative command to sign in, breaking down the mechanics of single sign-on and token-based authentication.
We saw how that simple prompt is actually the gateway to building highly valuable, unified data profiles.
We looked at the destination, apps, and explored the economics of walled gardens, how companies use vague, plural destinations to condition users to buy into an entire ecosystem rather than a single tool.
Maximizing user login.
Exactly. And finally, we looked at the scraping glitch in Google and used it to understand the ultimate endpoint of UX design.
A completely frictionless environment where the boundary between the user's action and the corporation's platform completely disappears. It highlights a modern textual environment where instructions are stripped down to their absolute most minimal imperative forms.
It really is wild to think about. We took a string of text that takes less than 2 seconds to read and mapped out the fundamental architecture of the digital economy.
It proves you don't need a 1,000-page terms of service agreement to understand how a platform operates.
You just need to rigorously examine the gateways they build.
It's forensic architecture, really. Every pixel on a login screen is a structural load-bearing element.
Which leaves us with a really fascinating final thought for you to consider as you go about your day. Tomorrow, when you sit down at your computer or pick up your phone, you are going to encounter dozens of these minimalist gateways.
They're everywhere.
You will be told to sign in, continue, or accept. When a piece of text simply commands you to sign in without explaining what you are signing into beyond a general category like apps, how does that lack of transparency change your relationship with the digital text you interact with every single day?
It's a question of recognizing the architecture before it routes you.
Are you making a conscious choice to enter a walled garden? Or are you just automatically following the path of least resistance because the door was left slightly open? It absolutely is something to think about. Thank you so much for providing this incredibly unique, highly focused source material and for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the structures around you, especially the ones designed to be invisible. Until next time.